So the first thing I usually do is I'm going to share my screen, and on the browser I've got the meeting next week. And so before I create the Slido feedback section on Slido as well as any voting, I just have the agenda in front of me for the meeting that I'm going to create the polls for. Now, next week is a bit unusual because it's a competition. So the voting is going to be a little bit different. So I've got the agenda, and then you can see here I'm about to log into Slido. So logging in is easy. I'm using the an email address that we currently have and a username and password that I'll share with you at another point. When you log in initially, you'll see all the previous Slido feedback and voting forms there. So if you go back, for example, to voting, you can see all the polls that we've had for all the previous meetings. So anyway, so to create a Slido, you just click on the plus Slido button at the top, and you'll see here a date comes up for a parameter of 2 days. You just want to select the date in question, so that we just move that to October, and it's October the 1st. So you click on the 1st. It should automatically end on the same day. I'll give your Slido a name. I'll go with BPT because that's short, an acronym for the club. Then we're going to have feedback because we're going to have 3 speeches. And although we won't have evaluators for them during the day, they probably deserve some feedback. So whether this was a standard meeting or a meeting like this, you just want to create, you can call it anything you like, it doesn't matter. But I put the date on it because that way it correlates nicely with the meeting. So you've got the date, you've got the label, and then you hit create Slido. So you've got a choice here of the different types of polls. And to keep it simple, there are only 2 options. One is a multiple choice, which is great for voting. Okay. And the other one is open text, which we're going to be using for feedback. So we'll click on that. And what you've done essentially say is this type of poll will allow people to write any notes and comments to that person. In fact, that information is then gathered by whoever's managing Slido. And you see, usually within 24 hours after the meeting, I'll share and copy those notes and email them to the respective member. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is put something like, please, if I can type properly, please provide feedback to, and then whoever the first speaker is. So I go back to the meeting and I can see here, that is really weird. And I can see here that the first speaker is Judy. So I'm going to go back into the Slido and put Judy as my first speaker and go to poll settings. So just to recap, I've created this. It's just an open text. Then I put the name in the bracket there in the top. And this is where the settings is. You want to hide that in every case. If it's visible, everyone can see the feedback as well as the polls. So I automatically click hidden. And then if you fancy just putting a nice little graphic, don't forget this is it's a presenter, so it's usually a lady or a man. And I just put a lady's image there and we're good to go. That's it. That's how quick it is to put together feedback. If I do another one, instead of going to the top right, there's a little button that says add. So you click on that. Any ideas which one I'm going to choose for this? Either multiple choice or open text. What do
You
you
do op
think?
you're going to do open text for the next speaker.
Yes, because it's another bit of feedback. So please provide. Thank you. Thanks, Garen. And the next speaker, if you go back to this, we can see it's Megan. So for Megan, oh, helps if I type it correctly. You go to poll settings, hidden, find a nice image, probably different from the last one. It's presenter because it likes, I think that's the most applicable one. Let's doesn't matter who it is. We can save that. And then you're good to go there. So that I'll close that. So now can you see on the left, we've got provide feedback for Judy. Please provide feedback for Megan. And we've got one more. And so we're going to add one there. Open text. As you said, Karen, quite rightly, please provide. My typing is hopeless. And of course, who is next speaker? It's Brand. So then, can you see at the top left, there's a little arrow, and that takes you to the main menu. So if you bring it back to the main menu, these are all the past polls that we've had in date order. And then you can see here is the first set of 3 polls. Okay, now we're going to be running a separate set of voting polls, which I think all the members will use. So very similar to what we're going to do. So we know who those speakers are. And instead of going back into this one, we're going to create a brand new Slido. So again, you can see the top right there, there's add create Slido button. Again, the date will appear. We'll just choose the 1st again of October because that's when the event will take place. And this time it's, of course, voting. So we're going to call it voting. And the date is October. Come on, Craig. 1st, 2025. And then create. And now that will be a second one. Karen, I think you'll work this one out. It isn't open text. What do you think it might be?
It's multiple choice.
Yes. So now this is perfect for creating a poll where there's only one choice or outcome for each member who logs in. So if it's a guest or a member, they're just going to select one or the other. And you can add multiple options. So for example here, please vote for your favorite. Of course, it's American spelling, not English. I always have to remember that. Speaker. And then option 1, so we can put speaker 1 there. Speaker 2. And then finally, we have a third speaker, in this case, speaker 3.
Don't we put their names there?
Yes, you don't have to. You could just put their names there instead of putting speaker 1, 2, and 3. I just think it's quite nice to list the number of the in order of the speakers. In
Okay.
this case, I think, was it Judy was the first speaker?
Yes. And then Megan.
Megan, and then Brant was the second one.
Right.
You can do this live. So let's say you're doing table topics and you have no idea who the speakers are. This is what I use when we're live and we're doing our presentation. I just go and add it in there. Again, I want to go to poll setting because I want to hide the fact that, and sometimes if I forget it, what happens is people will start to see the voting. And as you can say, that can influence the vote. So we want to make sure that's hidden. Again, a nice poll. Now, this time I usually use a nice winner or a trophy or something like that depicts nicely on the left-hand side here. Well, you can choose any graphic you like, but I think that looks quite cool. And again, we know what the poll setting is hidden. You are good to go. You may want to ask, great, that's fantastic. How do we then run the poll? Now, to generate the URL for this for this particular vote, I don't know if you can see in the top right corner, there's a share button. So you click on that, and that allows you to copy the URL and below copy the QR code. And I do that and I put them on the website. Okay, so if I log in as the site admin, not site manager, and now I'm logging in as admin, you can only add and update the agenda by doing this. You can't go in as a regular user. You have to go in as site admin. Joyce will know this, and I suspect, Karen, you do know as well. So you click on agendas. This looks like the correct one. And now can you see on Toast Host, there is a little pencil button. Click on that, and that will allow you to update the agenda. And if you click on meeting description, you can see here you've got the usual blurb here. I'm just going to close that for a second, go back to a previous meeting, let's say the 24th of September, and I'm just going to copy this. So you have to go back and find the previous agenda. So you copy the little introduction with the little QR code things there. You don't want to copy that. Then you go back into the agenda you're updating, which is the 1st of October. Click on the edit button. Glad I'm recording this. Go to the meeting description, and you're just going to cut and paste what I use. Now, if you do not update these, this has the previous meetings links. So you want to go in here and change them. It might seem laborious, but it's really easy to do so. So copy the link here on Slido, go back into the meeting, which is here, And this one is for voting. So if I just click over the URL link, and there is a little button on the sort of top left of the menu that says update the link or add a link. Here's the old one, so you want to get rid of it. Add your new one in there, cut and paste, hit OK. So when we have the meeting, when somebody clicks on that on the agenda or on the agenda here on the website, they can go to the Slido poll, and we want to update that one. So let me just go back for the purposes of this. Can you see there's a QR code there which people can use? So you want to copy that. Just as I've copied the URL, go back into the meeting, and underneath you just want to press Control V, or if you're using a PC, yeah, Control V or Command V. And if you notice, it's very big. If I press save, this QR code is enormous. So, so what you do, go back and edit it, make sure you haven't got such an enormous QR code, and you just change the width of it to around about 120, 130. Can you see the width and height? Just change the top left.
Where did you click to do that? I missed that step.
No, that's fine. So actually, on the image, you double click on the image, and you get the image properties will come up.
Okay, you double
And
click on the image. Okay.
yeah, double click on the image, and then you just change the size because, I mean, look, if I make it 200, it's not bad. If I click OK, it's not bad. Still a bit big. Doesn't need to be that big. But if I make it about 120, that size is good. Bearing in mind that that QR code actually goes with the voting one. It doesn't actually go with this one, if that makes sense. So it's a bit laborious, but once you do it a couple of times, it's a breeze. So if you go back now to the main menu, we want to add the feedback one, which is this. And if you go to the share button, remember at the top right, that gives you copies for this poll, this set of 3 polls. The feedback for Judy, feedback for Megan, feedback for Brant. Copy the link, go back into the meeting itself. This time you want to hover over the URL link. You might be thinking, oh my God, Craig, why'd you make it so complicated? There must be there must be another way of doing this, you're thinking. And then copy the QR code, go back into the meeting, just next to, you click on this one. Again, double click on the image, make it 120 if you want to make it small. Click OK, and you will notice there's 2 QR codes now. This obviously wants to be aligned up. Doesn't take long. Usually I do it in the order so you don't have to do what I've just done. And you can see they're both aligned on their respective one. If you hit save, which I've just done, and close. And now when you go onto the agenda, look what you've got here, my fellow Toastmasters. And if you do hover over these, and if I press the voting one, this is what the member will look at when they're on their phone or on their browser. And once I make the poll active, so if I go back to here, which one are we on here? We're on the voting. So if I go back to, if you're a person administrating this, go to the voting one here and press, can you see there's a start interaction button or play button there? Now I've launched it. Can you see there's a little square there? And it says waiting for votes at the top. And as soon as people start interacting, so let's go to my link here. Let's go and vote for Brand, shall we? Can you see that? You guys will be familiar with this because you've done this. Press send. And if we go back to the person who's administering the poll, Brandt's already got 1 vote. Why do you think that is? Because I've just voted for him. And after all the votes have come in, you can see the various polls. So if I go back here, for example, and I go to a previous voting option, you can see here what the total of the polls looks like. And then you give that information to the Toastmaster or the contest chair. So to quickly recap, to create a new Slido from scratch, joining all these historical ones, go to the top right, create Slido, put the date for the date of the event, the Slido name, you can choose whatever you like, create Slido, and then choose from the two options as I mentioned before. How easy is that?